The blood was still wet on my hands when I walked into the crimson velvet for the first time. I'd wiped them twice, once on my coat in the alley, once on the handkerchief I'd stolen from a drunk outside, but I could still feel it, sticky between my fingers, under my nails. The November rain had washed away most of the evidence, but not the feeling, never the feeling. The Speakeasy's entrance was hidden behind a laundromat that reeked of lie and desperation. I gave the password, "The Canary Sings at Midnight," to a man built like a Mack truck, and he looked me over with eyes that had seen everything and been surprised by nothing. Whatever he saw in my face made him step aside. The sound hit me first, a horn section so smooth it could make you forget your own name, drums that felt like a heartbeat, and underneath it all, the low murmur of Chicago's most dangerous people pretending to be civilized. I descended the stairs into a world of golden light and purple shadows, where crystal chandeliers dripped from Art Deco ceilings and cigarette smoke curled through the air like silk. I was shaking from cold, from fear, from what I just witnessed in that alley. My stepfather, finally still, finally silent, finally unable to hurt anyone ever again. The kitchen knife I dropped 3 blocks away. My mother's body getting cold on our apartment floor. I needed to disappear. And what better place to vanish than in plain sight? "You lost, doll?" A man in a crimson vest materialized beside me, the kind of man who made his living reading people's weaknesses. His smile was professional. His eyes were calculating. "I'm a singer," I said, and my voice came out steadier than I expected. "I heard you might need one." It was a lie. I'd heard nothing. I'd simply run until my feet gave out, and they'd given out here, at the doors of the most infamous speakeasy in the Loop. But my mother had been a singer before my stepfather broke her jaw the first time, and she taught me every standard, every blues number, every torch song that could make a man weep into his whiskey. The man's eyebrow arched. "That's so. The boss already's got—" "Tommy," the voice came from behind me, and it wasn't loud, but every conversation within 20 feet died immediately. I turned. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with the kind of darkness that suggested Mediterranean blood mixed with something harder, colder. His suit was black and fit him like it had been sewn onto his body by someone who understood that clothing was armor. His hair was slicked back, revealing a face that would have been beautiful if not for the scar that ran from his left temple to his jaw, white and raised and deliberate. Someone had wanted him to remember that wound, but it was his eyes that stopped my breath. Dark eyes, nearly black in the low light, with an intensity that felt like being held underwater. He looked at me the way a man looks at something he's already decided to own. "Boss, she says she's a singer." Tommy's voice had lost all its smoothness. "I can see what she is." He moved closer, and I caught his scent, expensive cologne, cigars, and underneath it, something metallic. Blood, I realized, just like me. What I want to know is why she's standing in my establishment looking like she's seen a ghost. My throat was dry. "I need a job." "You need more than that, sweetheart." He tilted his head, studying me with the focus of a man who'd built an empire on reading people's tells. "You need sanctuary." The word hung between us, and I wondered what he saw when he looked at me. A girl in a threadbare coat, her dark hair plastered to her skull from rain, her lips probably blue from cold. Her hands I shoved them into my pockets, her hands that still felt sticky. I can sing, I said again. Can you? He gestured to Tommy. Get her dried off. Find her something to wear that isn't that. His eyes raked over my coat, and I knew he'd clocked the stains I couldn't quite see in the dim light. If she can hold a tune, she goes on at midnight. If she can't, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. They put me in a dressing room that smelled of powder and perfume and champagne gone sour. A Negro maid who introduced herself as Pearl brought me a dress, red silk, drop waist, with beading that caught the light like captured stars. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever touched. Fits you perfect, Pearl said, her eyes kind but knowing. Don't get comfortable in it, though. Mr. Mancini's got particular tastes about his singers. Mancini? The name felt dangerous in my mouth. Pearl's expression closed down. You don't know who... She stopped, studied me. Lord have mercy. You really did just wander in here blind, didn't you? I didn't answer. I was busy staring at myself in the mirror, at this stranger in red silk who looked like she belonged in this underworld palace. My dark hair had dried in waves. Someone, Pearl, I realized, had lined my eyes with coal, painted my lips crimson. I looked like a woman who sang torch songs for gangsters. I looked like someone else entirely. That was good. Rose Murphy needed to disappear. This woman in the mirror could be anyone. Vittorio Mancini, Pearl said quietly, runs everything from the Loop to Cicero. Bootlegging, numbers, protection. Half the police force is on his payroll. The other half knows better than to cross him. She adjusted the dress's shoulder strap. He's been running this place for 3 years, and he's never lost a singer to anything but natural causes, if you understand me. I didn't, but I nodded anyway. He's got rules, Pearl continued. No fraternizing with customers. No drinking his hooch when you're working. No trouble. She met my eyes in the mirror. And no man touches what's his. You're his now, you understand? The moment you step on that stage, you're his canary, and Mr. Mancini doesn't share. A knock on the door made us both jump. 5 minutes, a man's voice called. My heart was trying to escape through my ribs. I'd sung for my mother, for the empty kitchen late at night, for the bathroom mirror, never for an audience, never for my life. What's your name, honey? Pearl asked. I couldn't say Rose. That girl was dead, left bleeding on a kitchen floor, alongside the monster who'd created her. This new woman in red silk needed a new name, a name that meant something. Vivian, I heard myself say, my mother's middle name, Vivian Cross. Pearl smiled, sad and knowing. Welcome to the Crimson Velvet, Vivian Cross. Try not to die here. The stage was smaller than I'd imagined, just a raised platform with a microphone and a spotlight that felt like standing under the sun. The band, 5 Negro musicians who'd probably never be allowed to drink in the bar they played in, looked at me with professional skepticism. The piano player, his fingers long and elegant on the keys, raised an eyebrow. What's your key, miss? The crowd had gone quiet. Every face turned toward me like flowers toward light. I could see Vittorio Mancini at a table in the back, shadows and smoke, his dark eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. E flat, I said. Do you know Love for Sale? The piano player's lips quirked. The Porter tune? That's a bold choice for a virgin run, miss. but his hands were already moving, and then the bass joined in, that low, sad pulse, and I closed my eyes and thought of my mother, how she'd sung while doing dishes, while hanging laundry, while her jaw was still wired shut from where he'd broken it, how music had been the only thing he couldn't touch, couldn't ruin, couldn't take away. I opened my mouth, and my mother's voice came out. Love for sale, appetizing young love for sale. The room disappeared. There was only the music, the ache in my chest, the memory of blood on my hands transformed into something clean and sharp and true. I sang about love being sold on street corners, about innocence being bartered, about the kind of desperation that makes you willing to trade anything for survival. I sang about everything I'd just done and everything I'd become. When the last note faded, the silence was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat. Then the applause started, thunderous, shocking, real. Men in expensive suits stood up. Women in pearls and ostrich feathers dabbed at their eyes with handkerchiefs. And Vittorio Mancini sat perfectly still, one hand around a glass of amber liquid, watching me like I was a puzzle he'd just decided to solve. I sang 4 more songs that night. The band warmed to me, following my improvised runs, supporting me when my voice cracked with exhaustion. By the time I finished The Man I Love, there were tears on my face, and I wasn't entirely sure they were part of the performance. Tommy appeared the moment I stepped off stage, materializing from the shadows like he'd been conjured. Boss wants to see you. My legs were shaking, from adrenaline this time, not fear. Now. He led me through the crowd, past tables full of Chicago's most dangerous citizens, past dealers and politicians, and women who traded their innocence for fur coats long ago. They all looked at me differently now. Before, I'd been invisible. Now I was something else. We climbed a set of stairs I hadn't noticed before, covered in crimson carpet that swallowed sound. At the top was a door, solid mahogany, with 2 men standing guard, who moved aside the moment they saw Tommy. Inside was an office that looked like it belonged to a university dean, not a crime boss. Floor-to-ceiling bookcases, a massive desk of dark wood, windows overlooking the street below, where rain continued to fall on a city full of secrets. Vittorio Mancini stood with his back to me, looking out at Chicago like a king surveying his kingdom. "Leave us," he said quietly, and Tommy vanished. The silence stretched. I counted my heartbeats, 10, 20, 30, before he turned around. "Sit." I sat in the leather chair, facing his desk, my hands folded in my lap to hide their trembling. Up close, he was even more devastating. The scar didn't detract from his beauty. It amplified it, made him real, made him dangerous. He was clean-shaven, his jaw sharp enough to cut glass, and when he moved, it was with the economy of motion of someone trained in violence. He poured 2 glasses of amber liquid from a crystal decanter. Whiskey, I realized. The real stuff, not the bathtub gin most speakeasies sold. "Drink," he said, pushing a glass toward me. I'd never had whiskey before. It burned going down, but the warmth that followed was worth it. He watched me swallow, watched color return to my face. "You're not a professional," he said. It wasn't a question. "No, you've never sung in public before tonight." "No." He sat down behind his desk, and the movement was so controlled, so precise. that I understood this was a man who never did anything by accident. Who are you running from? Vivian Cross. My real name, my dead name, almost fell out of my mouth. Does it matter? In my experience, people who walk in off the street covered in blood and desperate for work are running from one of two things: the law or someone who'll never stop looking. He sipped his whiskey. I need to know which. The clock on his wall ticked. Outside, the city pulsed with rain and jazz and 1,000 private desperations. Someone who can't look anymore, I finally said. His eyes narrowed. You kill him yourself? I should have lied, should have deflected, obscured, protected myself. But there was something about the way he asked, clinical, almost curious, without judgment, that made honesty feel safer than deception. Yes, he nodded slowly, like I'd confirmed something he'd already suspected. Good. Women who can't do violence when necessary don't survive in my world. He set down his glass. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sing in my club 6 nights a week. You're going to live in the apartment upstairs. It's small, but it's clean and it's safe. You're going to keep your mouth shut about whatever you see or hear in this place. And you're never, ever going to lie to me again. I didn't. Vivian Cross. One dark eyebrow rose. That's barely 24 hours old as a name. I don't care what you were before you walked through my door, but if you're going to be mine, I need to know you won't bring trouble to my threshold. I won't. The words came out too fast, too desperate. He smiled, and it was the most terrifying thing I'd seen all night. Not cruel, but knowing. Like he could see straight through me to every secret I'd ever kept. Yes, you will. Pretty things always do. He stood, walked around the desk, and suddenly he was close enough that I could feel the heat radiating off him. He smelled like power and danger and expensive sin. But I'll handle it. That's what I do. He reached out, and I forced myself not to flinch. His fingers, rough with old scars, warm despite everything, touched my chin, tilted my face up to meet his gaze. You've got something, he said quietly, in your voice. Pain. Real pain. Not the manufactured kind. These rich boys downstairs eat that up. They'll come back every night just to hear you bleed in public. His thumb brushed my lower lip and electricity shot straight through me. But there are rules. No one touches you. No one talks to you except through Tommy. You don't accept drinks, gifts, or invitations. You're not for sale. You understand? You're mine. I should have been terrified, should have run. This man was claiming ownership of me like I was a painting or a car or a particularly valuable racehorse. But all I felt was relief. I understand, I whispered. Good girl. He released me, stepped back, and the loss of his touch was almost physical. Pearl will show you to your room. Get some sleep. You go on tomorrow at 10, midnight, and 2 in the morning. I stood on shaking legs, made it to the door before his voice stopped me. Vivian? I turned. He was silhouetted against the window. Rain-streaked glass, making him look like a figure in a painting, beautiful and damned. Whatever you did, he said quietly, whoever you killed, it stays dead. No one comes looking in my club. Not the cops, not the feds, not God himself. You're safe here. My throat closed up. I managed a nod before fleeing. Safe. I was safe. It was only later, lying in a narrow bed in a small room that smelled of fresh sheets and lavender, that I realized I traded one cage for another. My stepfather's hands for Vittorio Mancini's rules. Blood on my hands for a dress of red silk. But when I finally slept, for the first time in years, I didn't dream of violence. I dreamed of dark eyes and the taste of whiskey and a voice saying, "You're mine." The days blurred into a strange new rhythm. Sleep until noon. Wake to meals delivered by Pearl. Real food, not the thin soup and stale bread I'd survived on for years. Dress in beautiful gowns that appeared in my closet like gifts from a fairy godmother. Descend at 9:30 for band rehearsal. Sing until dawn. The piano player's name was Solomon, and he'd been with Mancini since the beginning. Saved my life during the race riots, he told me during a break, his fingers idly playing scales. I was being chased by a mob with bats and bottles. Mr. Mancini stepped out of his car, fired 3 shots in the air, and told them if they wanted to kill someone, they'd have to go through him first. They left. Solomon laughed, low and knowing. Honey, everyone in this city knows you don't cross Vittorio Mancini. He's got no prejudice except against people who cross him. Doesn't matter if you're Negro, Italian, Irish, Jewish. If you're loyal, you're protected. If you're not, he played a discordant chord. Well, the Chicago River tells a lot of stories. I learned the hierarchy quickly. Tommy was the second in command, the one who handled day-to-day operations. There was Marcus, who ran security, a man who looked like he ate nails for breakfast. Angela, who managed the chorus girls with an iron fist and a sharp tongue. And everywhere, moving through the shadows, were men with bulges under their jackets and eyes that never stopped moving. The customers were a different education entirely. Aldermen who made laws against liquor while drinking bootleg champagne. Society wives who slummed it after their husbands fell asleep. Rival gangsters from the North Side who came to pay respect or issue subtle threats. I learned to read the room, to adjust my song selection based on the tension in the air. Upbeat jazz when the mood was celebratory. Torch songs when someone needed to weep into their whiskey. Blues so dirty they made grown men blush when the night turned dangerous, and everyone needed reminding that we were all damned together. And always, every single night, Vittorio Mancini sat at his table in the back, watching me. Sometimes he had company, men in suits who leaned close to hear his whispered instructions. Sometimes women appeared at his side, beautiful creatures in jewels and furs, who draped themselves over him like accessories. But his eyes never left me for long. It should have been unnerving. Instead, it felt like being held. On my 5th night, a drunk tried to climb on stage during Ain't Misbehavin'. He made it 2 steps before Marcus materialized, grabbed him by the collar, and literally threw him toward the door. The band didn't miss a beat, and I kept singing, but my hands were shaking. After the set, I found a bottle of French champagne in my dressing room. No note, but I knew who it was from. On my 8th night, a man in an expensive suit sent over a bracelet of real diamonds via one of the cigarette girls. I returned it immediately, watched Tommy intercept the man at his table, saw the way the man's face went white before he practically ran for the exit. The bracelet appeared in my room the next morning anyway. This time there was a note, in sharp masculine handwriting. You did the right thing. Keep it anyway. V. On my 12th night, I was singing Someone to Watch Over Me when I saw him. Detective Robert Murphy, my stepfather's partner on the force. He was sitting 3 tables back, scanning the room with cop eyes, and the moment I saw him, my voice cracked. Solomon covered for me, stretching out the instrumental bridge while I caught my breath. But Mancini had noticed. He was already standing, buttoning his jacket, moving toward Murphy's table with the predatory grace of a big cat. I couldn't hear their conversation over the music, but I watched Murphy's face go from confident to confused to terrified. Money changed hands, a thick envelope that Murphy tried to refuse before Mancini's expression made him think better of it. They shook hands. Murphy left immediately after. When I finished the song, my hands were slick with sweat. Mancini was gone. I found him in his office an hour later, after the 2 o'clock set. I didn't knock, just opened the door and walked in like I had any right to be there. He looked up from papers he'd been reviewing, surprise flickering across his face before settling back into that controlled mask. "You're supposed to be sleeping." "What did you say to him?" "To who?" "The detective." "Murphy." Mancini leaned back in his chair, studied me with those dark, knowing eyes. "You saw him." "I saw you see me see him." I wrapped my arms around myself. The dress tonight was emerald green, and suddenly I felt naked. "What did you tell him?" "That Rose Murphy died in a tragic accident 3 weeks ago," Mancini said calmly. "That her body washed up near Joliet, badly decomposed. That the case is closed. That if he's smart, he'll take the money I gave him and forget she ever existed." The room tilted. "You... what?" "I had my people look into you." He said it without apology. "After the first night, a girl shows up covered in blood, desperate, talented. I don't take in strays without knowing what I'm taking in." He stood, walked to the sidebar, poured himself a drink. "Your stepfather, Jack Murphy, was found dead in your apartment alongside your mother, Mary Murphy née Vivian Cross. Official ruling is murder-suicide. He killed her, then himself." "That's not what happened." My voice came out strangled. "That's what the paperwork says." He turned to face me, and something in his expression had softened. "The paperwork, I made sure, said exactly that. Your stepfather's service revolver, his fingerprints, his motive, a history of domestic violence carefully documented by hospital visits your mother tried to hide." He took a sip. "No one's looking for Rose Murphy. Rose Murphy doesn't exist anymore. Only Vivian Cross, who appeared in Chicago 3 weeks ago with impeccable references and a voice like spun gold." I couldn't breathe. "Why?" "Because you're mine," he said simply, "and I protect what's mine." The words hung between us, heavy with implication. "I didn't ask you to..." "No, you didn't. That's not how this works." He set down his drink and crossed to me in 3 strides. Suddenly, he was close enough that I could see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes, could smell the smoke and whiskey on his breath. "You're in my world now, Vivian. You sing in my club, you sleep under my roof, you wear dresses I pay for. That means when trouble comes looking, I'm the one who makes it disappear." His hand came up to cup my face, thumb stroking my cheekbone with a gentleness that seemed impossible from a man I'd watched make a cop nearly wet himself in fear. "I don't understand," I whispered. "You don't have to. Just keep singing." But I did understand, suddenly and completely. This was how he owned people. not through fear alone, but through salvation. He found broken things and made them beautiful again, and in return, they gave him everything. I should have pulled away, should have recognized the cage being built around me, bar by golden bar. Instead, I leaned into his touch. Why me? I asked. You could have any singer in Chicago. His smile was sharp enough to draw blood, because when you sing, every man in that room wants to save you. But you don't need saving, do you, Vivian? You saved yourself. You just need someone to make sure you don't have to do it again. He was wrong. I did need saving from the guilt, from the nightmares, from the feeling of my stepfather's blood drying sticky on my hands. But I couldn't say that, couldn't admit that I woke up every night reaching for a knife that wasn't there, my mother's scream still echoing in my ears. The man who gave you that scar, I heard myself say. Did you kill him? Yes. Did it help? No. His hand slid from my face to the back of my neck, and the possessiveness of the gesture made my breath catch. But it stopped him from hurting anyone else. Sometimes that has to be enough. He was so close, I could feel the heat of him through my thin dress, close enough to kiss. If either of us were brave enough or foolish enough to close the distance. I should go, I said. You should. Neither of us moved. Mr. Mancini, Vittorio, he said quietly. When we're alone, you call me Vittorio. Vittorio. His name tasted dangerous in my mouth. If I stay in your world, what happens when you get tired of me? His expression went cold, and for the first time, I saw the man who'd built an empire on blood and fear. I don't get tired of things I own. I keep them or I bury them. His grip on my neck tightened, not painful, but unmistakable. Which would you prefer? I should have been terrified, should have run. Keep me, I whispered. His eyes flashed with something dark and hungry. For a moment, I thought he might kiss me, might close that final distance and show me exactly how much danger I was really in. Instead, he released me and stepped back, leaving me cold and shaking. Go to bed, Vivian. You're on in 8 hours. I fled. The roses started appearing after that, one every night, waiting in my dressing room before my first set, deep red, almost black, with thorns carefully removed. No note, but I knew. The other girls noticed. Angela cornered me one night, her painted eyes sharp with warning. You're playing with fire, honey. I don't know what you mean. The hell you don't. She lit a cigarette, exhaled smoke toward the ceiling. I've worked for Mr. Mancini for 4 years. I've seen girls come and go. Singers, dancers, pretty things. He takes a shine to for a week or a month. She looked at me hard. But I've never seen him look at someone the way he looks at you. Like you're a problem he's trying to solve. Maybe I am. Then God help you when he finds the answer. She touched my shoulder, surprisingly gentle. Just remember, men like Vittorio Mancini don't fall in love. They fall into possession, and there's no coming back from that. But I was already too far gone to heed the warning. I started staying later after my sets, nursing a single glass of champagne while the band played for the stragglers. Sometimes Vittorio was still there, conducting business in his corner booth. I'd catch him watching me, and something would pass between us. Acknowledgement, challenge, promise. Once, a man got too drunk and grabbed my wrist as I passed his table. Before I could pull away, Before Marcus could intervene, Vittorio was there. He didn't say a word, just placed his hand over the man's, and whatever the drunk saw in his face made him release me and stumble over apologies. Vittorio's hand stayed on my wrist for 3 heartbeats, longer than necessary. "Thank you," I said, when the drunk had been removed. "Don't thank me." His voice was rough. "If I was a good man, I'd send you away, get you out of this city, set you up somewhere clean and safe." His thumb stroked the inside of my wrist, where my pulse was racing. "But I'm not a good man, Vivian, and I'm not letting you go." 3 weeks in, the North Side gang made their move. It happened during my midnight set. I was halfway through Stormy Weather when the doors burst open and 6 men with Tommy guns came pouring in. Screams, chaos. Solomon threw himself over his piano keys. I froze on stage like a deer in headlights. Nobody moves. The leader was a blonde man with pale eyes and a Chicago accent. "We're just here to deliver a message to..." The gunshot was so loud in the enclosed space that my ears rang. The blonde man looked down at the red spreading across his chest with an expression of comic surprise before crumpling. Vittorio stood at the top of the stairs, smoking pistol in hand, face carved from marble. "The message is received," he said calmly. "Now get out of my club." What happened next was chaos. Gunfire, screams. I dropped behind the stage as bullets tore through the air. Solomon pulled me under the piano, his body covering mine as the world exploded into violence. It was over in 30 seconds. When the smoke cleared, 4 men were dead, 2 had fled, and Vittorio stood in the center of it all, without a scratch on him. His suit was splattered with blood, not his, and his eyes were absolutely flat. "Clean this up," he said to Tommy. "Anyone hurt?" Rosie took one in the shoulder. "Marcus is fine. Everyone else just scared." "Good." His eyes found me under the piano, and something flickered across his face. Relief, maybe, or something darker. "Vivian, come here." I crawled out on shaking hands and knees. Solomon tried to hold me back, but I shook him off. I stood, glass crunching under my heels, and walked through the carnage to where Vittorio stood. Up close, I could see the tension in his jaw, the white-knuckled grip on his gun. "You hurt?" His eyes raked over me, checking for damage. "No." "Good." He grabbed my hand, too tight, almost painful, and pulled me toward the stairs. "Tommy, close the club for the night, pay everyone double, and find out how those bastards knew when to hit us." He dragged me up to his office, slammed the door behind us, and finally, let himself show emotion. His hands were shaking as he set down the gun. His breath came short and sharp. "Vittorio dash. You could have died." The words came out strangled. If they'd started shooting 2 minutes earlier, if you'd been in the crowd instead of on stage, if Marcus hadn't seen them coming. He rounded on me, and the anguish in his face took my breath away. "Do you understand? You could have died, and it would have been my fault." I'd never seen him like this, uncontrolled, raw, almost vulnerable. "But I didn't," I said softly. This time, he ran his hands through his hair, destroying its careful styling. "Christ, I shouldn't have let you stay. The moment I saw what you were, I should have put you on a train to California and paid you enough to start over. But you didn't, because I'm selfish." He looked at me, and the hunger in his eyes made my stomach flip. "Because the thought of you singing for anyone else sleeping anywhere else, being anywhere I couldn't see you. He crossed to me in 2 strides, and suddenly his hands were framing my face, tilting it up to meet his gaze. You're in my head, Vivian. You've been in my head since the moment you walked into my club looking like a drowned cat and sang like an angel with a broken wing. My heart was trying to escape my chest. Vittorio ... Tell me to stop. His forehead pressed against mine, and I could feel the tension vibrating through him. Tell me you don't want this. Tell me you're afraid of me. Give me one good reason to walk away. I should have listed all the reasons this was insane. He was a criminal. I was running from murder. We existed in different worlds, even though we lived under the same roof. Should have remembered Angela's warning about possession. Instead, I fisted my hands in his blood-stained lapels and pulled him closer. I'm not afraid of you, I whispered. I'm afraid of how much I want this. He made a sound low in his throat, triumph or surrender. I couldn't tell, and then his mouth was on mine. The kiss was nothing like I'd imagined. Not gentle, not hesitant, not careful. It was claiming, consuming, a branding that went bone deep. His hands were in my hair, destroying its careful waves. My back hit his desk and his body pressed against mine, and suddenly I understood what Angela had meant about possession. This wasn't romance. This was inevitability. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. His eyes were black with want, his lips swollen from kissing, and he'd never looked more dangerous or more beautiful. You're mine now, he said, and it wasn't a question. I was always yours, I admitted, from the first night. He kissed me again, slower this time, thorough, like he was memorizing the taste of me. When his hands started exploring, sliding up my ribs, thumbs brushing the underside of my breast through thin silk, I gasped against his mouth. Say it, he demanded. Say you're mine. I'm yours, I whispered. Vittorio, I'm... The door burst open. We broke apart. Tommy stood there, face grim, and even through my haze of desire, I could tell something was very, very wrong. Boss, we've got a problem. Vittorio's expression went cold, the vulnerable man from moments ago disappearing behind his gangster's mask, but his hand found mine, squeezed once. What kind of problem? The kind with badges and federal warrants. Tommy's eyes flicked to me, then back. They're saying someone on the inside tipped them about the north side hit. They're tearing the place apart, looking for evidence. My blood turned to ice. Get Vivian out of here, Vittorio said immediately. Back entrance. Take her to the Lakeshore safe house. Boss, if they're looking for an inside man, I know. His jaw clenched, which is why I'm staying, to make sure they find what I want them to find. He turned to me, and his expression was fierce. Go with Tommy. Stay where he puts you. Don't come out until I send for you. Vittorio ... He kissed me once, hard and fast. Trust me. And then Tommy was pulling me toward a hidden door I'd never noticed. And we were descending stairs I didn't know existed, and the sound of police whistles and shouting faded behind us. The safe house was a brownstone in Hyde Park, quiet and nondescript. Tommy left me there with 2 guards and instructions not to answer the door for anyone but him or Vittorio. I spent 3 days going slowly insane. No news, no updates, just silence and my own thoughts, and the terrible certainty that I destroyed everything by being exactly what Angela warned about, a complication Vittorio couldn't afford. On the fourth day, Tommy appeared. His face was grave. Is he? I couldn't finish the question. He's fine, but we've got to move you. Move me? Why? Tommy looked uncomfortable. Because the feds aren't looking for a gangster, Miss Cross. They're looking for you. The world tilted. Me? Rose Murphy. They got an anonymous tip that you didn't die, that you're hiding in Chicago. They're offering immunity if you testify against Mr. Mancini. His expression was hard. Someone's trying to use you to bring him down. I would never. I know, the boss knows, but unless we can prove you're dead. He trailed off. He's got a plan, but you're not going to like it. The plan was simple, elegant, and absolutely insane. I would die. Again. Vittorio had arranged everything. A body, some poor girl from the morgue who matched my general description. Papers identifying her as Vivian Cross. A staged fire at the Crimson Velvet that would destroy any evidence. A funeral that half of Chicago's underworld would attend. And then I would disappear. It's the only way, Vittorio said when I finally saw him again. In a warehouse by the stockyards where the smell of blood was so thick you could taste it. He looked exhausted, darkness under his eyes, tension in every line of his body. As long as Rose Murphy or Vivian Cross exists, someone can use you against me. But if you're dead, then what? My voice came out harsher than I intended. I hide forever? I never sing again? I become a ghost? You become safe. He cupped my face with both hands, and the tenderness in the gesture broke something inside me. Vivian, they're not just trying to frame me. They want you on a witness stand admitting to murder. They want to use your testimony to destroy everything I've built, and then they'll lock you up and throw away the key. Is that what you want? Of course not, but then trust me. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. I'll get you out of Chicago, set you up in New York, maybe, or Los Angeles. Somewhere you can start over, be whoever you want to be. The words were kind, generous even, but all I heard was, without me. You're sending me away, I said flatly. I'm keeping you alive. That's not what I asked. I pulled back from his touch. If I leave Chicago, I never see you again. That's what you're really saying. His silence was answer enough. Something inside me hardened. No. Vivian, no. I stepped back, wrapped my arms around myself. I didn't survive my stepfather and find my way to you just to be shipped off like an inconvenient package. I won't do it. You don't have a choice. There's always a choice. I lifted my chin, channeled every bit of my mother's steel spine. You said I was yours, that you don't get rid of things you own, so either you meant it or you were lying. His expression went dangerous. You think this is a game? I think you're scared. The words came out before I could stop them. I think you're so used to protecting people by pushing them away that you don't know how to let someone stay and fight beside you. You don't understand what you're asking. Then explain it to me. I closed the distance between us, placed my hand over his heart. It was racing. Tell me why sending me away is better than keeping me close. Tell me why I should spend the rest of my life wondering if you're alive or dead, if someone finally put a bullet in you while I was safe and comfortable in California. My voice cracked. Tell me how I'm supposed to breathe, knowing I'll never see you again. His hands came up to grip my shoulders, and the intensity in his eyes was almost frightening. "Because loving me will destroy you," he said roughly. "Because I'm poison, Vivian. Everyone who gets close to me ends up dead or broken, and I can't," his voice broke, "I can't watch that happen to you." "Too late," I whispered. "I'm already broken. You were there the night I shattered, and you're the only one who's made me feel whole again." "Vivian," I kissed him, poured everything into it: desperation, defiance, devotion. For a heartbeat, he was still, frozen, and then he kissed me back, like a drowning man finding air. His hands were in my hair, on my back, pulling me impossibly closer. When we broke apart, his forehead rested against mine. "If you stay," he said quietly, "there's no going back. You'll be mine in every way. You'll live in my world, sleep in my bed, sing in my club if I rebuild it, or stay silent if I don't. You'll be a gangster's woman, Vivian. All the danger, all the fear, all the blood, that becomes yours too." "I know. They'll try to kill you. Let them try. I'll be possessive. Jealous? I won't share. Not your time or your attention or your smiles. I'll own you." "I know," I said again. "And you'll be mine too. That's how this works." His laugh was shaky. "You're out of your mind." "Probably." I kissed him again, softer this time. "But I'm not leaving." He held me for a long time, his face buried in my hair, his arms so tight I could barely breathe. And for the first time since I'd walked into his club covered in blood, I felt truly safe. "Okay," he finally said. "Okay, we'll figure it out. But if this goes wrong..." "It won't. You don't know that." "No," I agreed. "But I know you. And that's enough." Epilogue. They raided the warehouse 30 minutes later. Turns out, the anonymous tip wasn't about me at all. It was about Vittorio, his operations, his empire. Someone very powerful wanted him gone. What they found was an empty building, cleaned of all evidence, with no sign anyone had been there for months. We watched from a car 3 blocks away as the feds tore the place apart, finding nothing. Tommy was driving, Marcus rode shotgun, and I sat in the back seat with Vittorio's arm around my shoulders, his other hand holding a gun, just in case. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Somewhere they'll never find us," Vittorio said. "I've got a place in Detroit, quiet, off the books. We can lie low there until this blows over. And then I burn down whoever sold me out, rebuild my empire, and make sure every person in this city knows that you're untouchable." His hand tightened on my shoulder. "But first, I'm going to marry you." I turned to stare at him. "What?" "I'm not keeping you as my mistress or my canary or my guilty secret." His eyes were fierce. "If you're staying as my wife. Legal, binding, permanent. I want everyone to know you're mine." Tommy made a choking sound from the front seat. "Is that a proposal?" I asked, torn between laughter and tears. "It's a statement of intent." Vittorio's mouth quirked. "But if you want romance, I can get down on one knee when we're not fleeing from federal agents." I kissed him instead of answering, and his arms came around me like he'd never let go. "I'll take that as a yes," he murmured against my lips. "Yes," I whispered, "to all of it. The danger, the darkness, the empire, you." As we drove away from Chicago, leaving behind my old name and my old life and everything I'd been before. I realized I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of the past, not of the future, not of the man beside me who'd promised to keep me, even if it destroyed us both. I'd walked into his speakeasy, a murderer looking for salvation. I was leaving as a gangster's wife, ready to build a kingdom from blood and song. The story was only beginning, and I couldn't wait to see how it ended.